There is one quiet, almost imperceptible moment when something inside you hits the brakes on your own dreams. And the most curious thing is that often you don't even realize it's happening. It's like a low voice hidden in the back of your mind telling you that maybe you're not capable, that perhaps you don't deserve it, that it might be better to stay exactly where you are. And it's precisely at this point that most people have their lives completely redefined for the worse. Because when your own brain sabotages your dreams, you don't need any external enemy. Everything is already happening inside you. Throughout my life, I've seen this thousands of times. Talented people, brilliant people, people full of potential, but trapped in an endless cycle of self-sabotage, not understanding that the problem wasn't a lack of opportunity, nor a lack of intelligence, nor a lack of luck. The problem was the mental programming they carried since childhood, built by paradigms that repeated generation after generation. And I experienced this firsthand. It wasn't theory, it wasn't study. It was pain, confusion, and a profound feeling that my life was destined to be small. There was a time when I worked jobs I hated, jobs that made me feel like the world had forgotten me. I changed tires, cleaned parts, did anything that came up, without purpose or direction. And still, even in that dull routine, my brain repeated one phrase that many of you know well: "This is what you deserve." How many times have you thought that? How many times have you looked in the mirror and felt you should conform, that it wasn't worth trying again, that those born to survive will never learn to prosper? And the most intriguing thing is that this doesn't only happen in moments of failure. Sometimes when an opportunity arises, when something big is about to happen, that's exactly when the mind starts to sabotage. I clearly remember when my life took one unexpected turn. It was after I found one book that changed everything for me. I was completely lost, without formal education, without prospects, without money, and above all, without self-esteem. I had just left the fire department behind, carrying the trauma of my injured finger, which seemed to symbolize the way I saw myself, as someone imperfect, limited, inadequate. And yet, in that period when everything seemed to say I had no worth at all, I discovered something no one had ever taught me before. The way you see yourself completely shapes the way you live. It was shocking to realize that I didn't fail because the world was too difficult. I failed because my mind hadn't been trained to expect anything but difficulties. My brain was working against me. And this is what I want you to understand today. It's not the world that prevents you from achieving your dreams. It's the silent programming within you that determines the size of your life. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to have a natural ability to create opportunities and others seem to destroy everything they touch? It's not a coincidence. It's conditioning. And to illustrate this further, think of something simple. How many times have you made grand plans, got excited, visualized something extraordinary, and then gave up because you thought it wouldn't work out? That's not a lack of ability. That's your brain trying to keep you exactly where you are. Self-sabotage is comfortable, growth is not. And what few people understand is that this mechanism wasn't created by you. It was installed by past experiences, by insecurities, by traumas, by criticisms you heard when you were still young, by situations that left deep marks without you ever realizing it. And look, this problem isn't exclusive to ordinary people. Many public figures have lived through this exact internal conflict. Elon Musk, for example, before achieving the colossal success everyone knows, was extremely rejected, doubted, and even humiliated for his ideas. The difference? He didn't let his brain dictate the size of his dreams. He knew that if he believed in the limitations imposed by his own mind, he would never have created anything he did. He faced self-sabotage, faced internal doubts, and decided that his dreams were bigger than his fears. Now I want you to look at your own life and answer honestly. How many opportunities have you lost because you believed the lies your mind kept repeating? How many dreams have you shelved because you thought it wasn't the right time? How many times have you listened to an inner voice saying, "What if it goes wrong?" and simply retreated? Most people retreat. And not because they can't, but because they don't allow themselves to try. Today I want to challenge you to observe what your brain is trying to do at this exact moment. Is it inviting you to continue, or is it trying to protect you from the discomfort of growth? Because believe me, When you start to tamper with the structure of your paradigms, the mind reacts. It tries to pull you back into your comfort zone, even if that zone is small, limited, and painful. I learned this the hard way, but I learned. And today, I want to guide you through this process step by step, showing you that you don't have to keep living a life diminished by fear, doubt, and self-sabotage, because when you understand this deeply, everything changes. And I'm going to prove that to you throughout this video. When I began to understand that my mind was the ground where everything was born, my dreams, my fears, my decisions, my achievements, and even my failures, I realized I needed to do something no one had ever taught me. I needed to take control of my thoughts, and that's not simple, it's not quick, and especially, it's not comfortable. Because going against your own mental programming requires you to confront old beliefs, beliefs that often carry the voice of someone who made a mark on your life. It could be the voice of a rigid father, a worried mother, a critical teacher, an aggressive boss. How many of those voices are still echoing inside you without you realizing it? And all of this happens so silently that most people spend years living on autopilot, believing they are making conscious decisions, when, in reality, they are merely obeying emotional patterns they don't even know exist. That's why, when someone tries to break out of an ordinary life and build something extraordinary, they feel fear, anxiety, doubt. Not because the goal is impossible, but because the brain is trying to keep them on the old route. It's like trying to navigate with an old map. You know you want to go further, but your mind insists on showing you the same old path. And that's precisely why I say that the biggest enemy of your success isn't out there. It's inside you. It's not the government. It's not the economy. It's not the crisis. It's not a lack of opportunity. It's the mental programming you've been repeating for years. It's the fear you inherited and didn't realize. It's the doubt you feed without realizing it. It's the self-sabotage you practice day after day thinking you're being realistic, when in fact, you're just being conditioned. Now, before I continue, I want to ask for something very important. If this content is making sense to you so far, if in some way it's opening your mind or making you see things about yourself that you'd never noticed, then click the like button and subscribe to the channel. This isn't just one symbolic gesture. Every time you react to content like this, YouTube understands that more people need to hear it, and that helps the channel continue reaching people who, just like you, might be living trapped by programming that sabotages their dreams. When you leave your like and subscribe, you don't just support the creator, you support the transformation of other people. Now let's return to the central point. Recent studies in neuroscience show something extremely powerful. The human brain prioritizes avoiding pain, not seeking pleasure. That is, when you think of a big dream, a big goal, a big leap in life, your mind doesn't ask, how can I achieve this? It asks, how can I avoid failing? And this one simple mechanism, when not understood, destroys careers, relationships, finances, and even mental health. One example of this happened with one figure many admired for years, Whitney Houston, an artist with an extraordinary voice, a talent that could have shone for decades. But even with all the fame and success, she faced one deep internal battle, emotional conflicts, insecurities, a silent war with her own mind. The result? A life marked by devastating highs and lows, because when you don't control internal patterns, they end up controlling you. And in the end, self-sabotage wins, regardless of fame or talent. If this happens with public figures admired, surrounded by resources and opportunities, imagine the impact it has on the lives of most ordinary people. And maybe you're living exactly that now. Perhaps you have an incredible talent, but can't show it to the world. Perhaps you have a project you always postpone because you think it's not ready. Perhaps you have a skill you never valued because someone in the past made you believe it had no worth. Or perhaps you simply live stuck in a routine, repeating the same days, without realizing that there's something inside you asking for more. And I understand this deeply because I've been exactly there. When I started my first cleaning business, I had no experience, no education, no money, no contacts, but I had two things that changed everything: the decision to believe in something different and the courage to act despite the fear. And that's what led me in that first year to earn over $100,000. something unthinkable for someone who, until then, had been living without direction. This wasn't magic, it wasn't luck, it was a paradigm shift. When you change the way you think, you change the way you act. And when you change the way you act, the world changes the way it responds to you. And from now on, I want you to start observing which areas of your life you've been unknowingly sabotaging. Do you procrastinate on projects? Are you afraid to say no? Do you compare yourself to other people? Are you overly self-critical? Do you fear taking risks? Do you feel too small for big opportunities? All of these are clear signs that your internal programming is operating on autopilot. And believe me, this isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to change. So before we move on to the deeper part of this transformation, I want to issue a challenge to you. For the next 3 days, every time a negative thought about yourself arises, any thought of doubt, fear, insecurity, or self-criticism, I want you to stop immediately and say to yourself, "This thought isn't mine, it belongs to my old paradigm." That's it. Don't debate the thought. Don't fight against it. Just recognize that it comes from old programming. This simple act will begin to weaken the power of that structure over you. It's the first step to freeing your mind. And if you take on this challenge, even if only for a few days, you'll notice how your consciousness shifts. And when consciousness shifts, everything shifts. As you begin to observe your thoughts more closely, something fascinating happens. You start to see patterns that have always been there, but you'd never noticed. And this is where one of the most crucial parts of this entire journey comes in, understanding that your brain wasn't designed to make you prosper. It was designed to help you survive. And survival doesn't require big dreams. It doesn't require bold goals. It doesn't require growth. Survival demands routine, repetition, caution, and predictability. That's why, when you think about expanding your life, your own brain interprets this as a threat. It triggers old memories, negative sensations, automatic thoughts, and uncomfortable emotions to try and pull you back into familiar territory. This explains why so many people, even with a sincere desire to improve their lives, continue repeating the same behaviors, the same mistakes, the same habits. And perhaps this is happening to you. Maybe you tell yourself every year that you're going to change, that you're going to start, that you're going to try, that you're finally going to take that leap. But something always happens and you retreat to your comfort zone. And the longer you spend in that zone, the more it transforms into an invisible cage. And I know exactly how this works because throughout my life I've guided thousands of people in workshops, training sessions, lectures, and mentorships. Brilliant individuals with immense potential, but who consistently got stuck at the same point. Their minds had been trained to believe that growth was dangerous, and as long as you believe this, consciously or unconsciously, your life will remain trapped in a predictable cycle: desire, excitement, fear, doubt, surrender. Do you recognize this cycle? How many times have you experienced it? The truth is, to break this pattern, you need to learn something that no one teaches in school, university, or the workplace. You need to learn to reprogram your self-image. Because every action you take, every decision you make, every goal you pursue, all stem from how you perceive yourself. If you believe you are a limited person, your decisions will be limited. If you believe you are incapable, your attitude will be weak. If you believe you were born for little, you will never be able to think big. And this isn't philosophy. This is human behavior, proven over decades by research in psychology, neuroscience, and mindset studies. A famous study from Stanford University showed that individuals with a fixed mindset, who believe their capabilities are limited, tend to give up faster, are more afraid of challenges, and avoid opportunities that might expose their vulnerabilities. In contrast, people with a growth mindset not only face challenges, but use obstacles as fuel. The problem is that most people learned early on that they shouldn't make mistakes, shouldn't fail, shouldn't try too hard, and they carry this into adulthood as if it were an absolute truth. And this reminds me a lot of an experience I had even before I became an entrepreneur. I was trying to start earning money with a small cleaning service, and one day I received a call for a job at a large office in a more upscale neighborhood. As soon as I hung up the phone, I felt a wave of nervousness. It was the kind of client I never imagined would trust me, And for an instant, I almost turned down the job, not because I couldn't do it, but because I didn't believe I deserved that opportunity. I found myself facing a feeling many of you have experienced, the sensation of being too small for a big step. But something inside me said, accept it, even with fear. And I accepted. That job opened doors that completely changed the course of my business. And every time I think about it, I realize how easy it would have been to let fear decide for me. It's frightening to think how life could have taken an entirely different path because of a single decision based on self-sabotage. And this leads us to a powerful point. Often, what separates you from your next big leap isn't a lack of knowledge, a lack of skill, or a lack of opportunity. It's a lack of emotional courage to face the internal discomfort that precedes growth. This discomfort isn't your enemy. It's a sign that you're about to break through a paradigm. It's an indicator that your mind is entering unfamiliar territory, and that's precisely where your life truly begins to change. But to emphasize this point, I want to mention an example of someone very well known who experienced the opposite. Mike Tyson, one of the greatest boxers in history, possessed extraordinary talent, incredible strength, almost incomparable potential, but a shattered self-image. The world saw him win, shine, conquer, but inside he carried deep insecurities, traumas, and unresolved emotional conditioning. And the result? He lost financial, emotional, personal, and professional control. It wasn't a lack of skill that ruined his career. It was the internal programming that was never restructured. Talent without mindset is like a powerful car with a loose steering wheel. Sooner or later, everything falls apart. I want you to understand this. No matter how intelligent you are, how talented you are, or how dedicated you are, if you don't change your self-image, your life will remain limited by the old version of yourself. And that old version is trying to survive. But you weren't born to survive. You were born to expand. Now I want you to do a simple exercise. Think about an area of your life where you know you could be doing better. Finances, career, relationships, health, self-esteem. Choose one. Now ask yourself, what story does my mind tell to justify why this hasn't changed yet? Because there's always a story. And that story is the code of self-sabotage. When you uncover that code, you begin to break the cycle. And in the next part, I'm going to show you exactly how to transform these silent patterns into a new mental structure. A structure that doesn't get stuck, doesn't retreat, and doesn't self-sabotage. A structure that creates success from the inside out. Because that's how everything begins. Always from the inside out. When you start to identify the internal story that underpins your fears, it becomes clearer why your life has taken the path it has until now. Nothing happened by chance. Every choice, every reaction, every surrender, every missed opportunity, everything was shaped by a silent narrative you've been repeating for years. And the most surprising thing is that this narrative wasn't created by you. It was implanted. Implanted by circumstances, by your environment, by the people around you, by the experiences that marked your past. But now you have the chance to rewrite it. And to begin this rewriting, we need to delve into an area that few people master. Understanding how your brain creates and maintains emotional habits. Emotional habits are automatic patterns of feeling and reacting. They make you worry even before you know the reason. They make you imagine the worst before considering the best. They make you instinctively retreat when the right thing to do would be to advance. And most seriously of all, these habits make you believe that this is part of who you are. But it's not. This is part of who you've learned to be. Science has already proven that about 95% of the decisions you make each day are entirely unconscious. You think you're choosing, but it's your paradigm that's making the decisions. That's why you promise to change, and yet you experience the same situations repeatedly. And perhaps you're realizing this now. Perhaps you're looking at your life and seeing patterns that have been repeating for years. Patterns you swore you would never let happen again, but they continue to occur because you weren't addressing the root cause, only the symptoms. And to break these patterns, you need to confront something most people shy away from: the truth. The truth that you are responsible for what you accept in your life. The truth that you are responsible for what you tolerate. The truth that you are responsible for what you repeat. And this responsibility isn't a burden, It's freedom. Because when you take ownership of the life you have, you automatically become capable of creating the life you desire. But there's something important to note. Self-sabotage isn't just emotional or mental, it's also behavioral. That's why intelligent people make destructive choices. It's why sensible people make irrational decisions. It's why people with immense potential squander clear opportunities. Self-sabotage creates behaviors that directly contradict the life you wish to live. And to illustrate this, just look at someone who had everything within reach, yet lost it all. MC Hammer. At the peak of his success, he achieved international fame, amassed great fortunes, and had limitless opportunities, but he lacked the emotional or mental framework to handle it. Self-sabotage led him to spend more than he earned, trust the wrong people, make impulsive decisions, and gradually destroy everything he had built. This isn't a lack of talent, it's a lack of understanding of how the mind works. And the fate of someone with an unprepared mind is always the same: collapse. Now reflect on this for a moment. If even celebrities with money, fame, teams, visibility, and limitless resources can lose everything due to their own mental programming, what prevents this from happening to any ordinary person? Why do so many people fail to progress financially? Why do so many abandon projects midway? Why do so many reach the end of their lives without realizing their dreams? The answer is simple. They battle the external world but do nothing to transform their internal world. And this is the point I want you to grasp deeply. Everything you experience today is a reflection of your internal world. Everything. Your relationships reflect your self-image. Your finances reflect your belief in your worthiness. Your career reflects your confidence. Your routine reflects your paradigms. Your external life is merely a projection of your internal life. And now you need to start delving into the question that truly matters. Who do I need to become to achieve what I desire? Because it's not about what you want. It's about who you are as you desire it. And often, what you want is far beyond what you believe you deserve. And when there's this misalignment between desire and self-image, your brain will always pull you down. Always. And this is where a powerful technique comes in. Simple, yet transformative. Guided, emotional visualization. It's not about visualizing the goal as a distant dream. It's about visualizing it as if it's already real, with the right feelings, with the right posture, with the decisions a successful person would make. Because the brain doesn't distinguish imagination from reality. It registers as truth whatever you feel with intensity. And when you feel as though you already possess what you desire, your mind begins to work to align your behavior with that new version. Apply this daily. Choose a clear goal, close your eyes and visualize as if you've already achieved it. Feel the environment, the security, the tranquility, the confidence. Do this for a few minutes every day. This isn't fantasy. This is conditioning. This is how new paradigms are installed. This is how the mind learns to stop pulling you back and starts pushing you forward. And before we move on to the next section, I want to leave you with a question you should carry with you until the end of this video. If you had absolute certainty that you couldn't fail, what would you do this year? Think about that honestly. Because the answer to that question reveals the true scope of your life and also reveals the extent of your self-sabotage. In the next part, we'll delve deeper into the reprogramming process, and that's when you'll truly understand how to definitively break free from your old self. Because once you liberate yourself from it, nothing can stop you from growing. And as you deepen this understanding, you begin to realize that nothing you desire is truly out of your reach. What's often missing isn't capability, isn't intelligence, isn't luck. It's consciousness. The consciousness of your own power, the consciousness of your vibration, the consciousness that you're not just reacting to the world, you are shaping the world from your internal world. And when this finally clicks within you, something extraordinary happens. Doubts begin to lose their grip. Fear diminishes. Anxiety stops dictating your steps because you start acting not from what you see, but from what you know, what you feel, what you've decided to create. It's the state where the impossible ceases to be a barrier and becomes merely a word that no longer applies to your life. Over time, you begin to notice subtle signs. Situations that once seemed like coincidences now take on new meaning. The right people cross your path, ideas emerge with greater clarity, opportunities reveal themselves where before there seemed to be nothing. And all of this starts happening because your vibration is already aligning with the new reality you're creating. And this is the moment you understand that what you seek is also seeking you, that life responds to your level of consciousness, that the more you expand, the more life expands with you, and that, when you vibrate from a place of certainty, the universe has no choice but to respond in the same frequency. And as you allow these ideas to settle within you, notice how all of this begins to make more sense as you permit yourself to advance further in this process. Every reflection, every insight, every small internal shift opens space for even greater results down the line, and this is just the beginning of what we'll still explore together. By the way, if anything we've discussed here today resonated with you, share this video with a special person who could also benefit from this transformation. Sometimes, a single message at the right time changes everything for someone. Let's move forward. I'll see you in the next video.